So at this time, we'll resume. We'll open it to public comment. If you just come to the front.
Yeah, my name is Bob Peter. As you all know, we had a Stargate reunion last weekend, and it was far better than I had ever expected it to be. 2001, we had a great Mike thank you very much, senior woman. Mike Cage financed a tremendous reunion that we had here, and then in 2005 we had another one. But I never in my wildest dreams ever expected to have a reunion like we had this year. It was phenomenal. Maybe it's because COVID, everybody was anxious to get out. But we had, I was on the registrar's table for the night at 4 o'clock when we first came. And the first 7 people were from California, Arizona, Texas, North Carolina, South Carolina, and Georgia. Just unbelievable. And that's the way it started, and that's the way it continued. But I'm here because we would not have been anywhere near as successful as it has been for the town board. We could not have put that on the park without your approval. I came to a town board meeting and I asked for several things to be done, and there was no hesitation on anyone's part here as far as the town board. In fact, Joyce really worked really hard with the beautification crew. I mean, Grant Spalding was incredible of going down there and taking care of the garbage, getting the garbage there. He went around and blocked all the roads off so people couldn't park on the side of the roads. I mean, every time I came down early in the morning, 6 o'clock, 6:30 to help pick up, he was already done. He was just an incredible employee, and his whole staff is. Dave Woods, if I hadn't been for Dave, we wouldn't have got the lights down there, because we had lights on in the evenings so people could see. And I really appreciated that. And the police department as well. I mean, Adam Halbert, I went to Adam Halbert, sat down and explained this is what we need. Adam was absolutely agreeable to anything. Not just the reunion, but the street fest. Their presence throughout the 3 days at the park and their presence at the street fest was really apparent. And as far as an alumni and the rest of Ticonderoga, I want to thank the board for allowing us to have a reunion, number one. But participating as much as you did, it really meant an awful lot to the alumni board. We worked really hard at it. And we're going to try to run this every 5th year. Mike Hayes originally said, let's try to do this every 5 years. So we're going to try to do that. So we'll do it maybe in 2025 and again in 2030 if we're still alive. But it was really successful. Thank you very much for that. Thanks, Bob.
Thanks, Bob.
Anyone else from the public?
Yeah, Mark Wright. John Cook asked me to come before you guys on his behalf. He's out of town. We want to talk about the Ticonderoga car show. He said that you want to raise the topic again about the entryway from the beginning of the park down to the Kissing Bridge. He said he brought this topic up after the 2019 car show, where he had received multiple complaints from car owners that they were bottoming out on the pavement crowns on the way down into the park, causing damage to their vehicles. And they said they had multiple conversations with the board over the last 2 years, but nothing's really been done yet except for some minor patchwork on the pathway. So the crowns are still there, and he said after this last show, this last week, they received even more complaints about the issue of damage to the cars and such. So he would like to once again respectfully request that that issue be resolved. It's a popular show annually. We put our money into Ticonderoga, and if that issue continues, maybe it won't be supported. Bringing those expensive automobiles in for the show. So, that's all I have. I just want to bring that to your attention. Request that be handled once again, once and for all. Okay, thanks.
Steve Miller, behind Alexandria Ave. Just wanted to bring up to the town board to make you aware that the vandalism and hazard at the Chute Bridge on Alexandria Ave continues. I don't know whether the town thinks it's all gone away, but there are kids jumping off the bridge right now as we sit here. This weekend, they were there 3 times a day, at least, multiple kids, and not swimming in the water, jumping off the bridge, backwards, all the way till midnight, both Saturday and Sunday nights. Midnight, so they're doing this in the dark, jumping off backwards. I see them bouncing off the barrels. I see them throwing bicycles into the water. I see them taking rocks off the shoreline, which is totally illegal, to remove the stones from the shoreline and throwing them at the barrels in the water. The same kids released the barrels this spring before the hydro people were able to hook them up. So I don't think the town, if you don't live there, you think it's like nothing's going on, but they're standing on the railing of the bridge on both sides, running back and forth and jumping into the water as cars and boats are going by, in the dark even. So I'd like to know what the town plans on doing something about it. The police have been there, they chased the kids away, and a half an hour later, there's 6 more there. And sometimes there's as many as 15 kids there having parties. So I don't understand how this has become, this is town property, part of it, but some of that property that they're on actually is owned now by somebody who bought the lot next to the property. But there's signs up that say no loitering, no swimming, no jumping on both sides of the bridge, and yet it continues daily, 3 or 4 times a day, multiple kids. It's not one kid doing it as a rite of passage. They're there all the time. And it's not just that. It's their language, their foul language, and screaming and everything else. We also know that they had fires there, and again, this weekend, throwing bicycles into the water and leaving them in there. Now, I don't see how this can be an issue to be just ignored.
I don't think it's been ignored, it's been discussed at public safety quite a few times.
Well, Adam and I went up and talked to the reporter about it. And he said that younger age, all they can do is take them home. He said, and 10 minutes later, they're back.
Well, eventually, one of the kids is going to fall and hit the barrel, break his neck, and his parents will sue the town. So I think you should be aware of that. That is, if there's that many kids there on a daily basis, eventually that's what's going to happen. Especially if they're jumping off there in the dark, doing backflips onto the barrels. Come on. Throwing bicycles in the water and then leaving them. And then, like I said, the police do come, they chase them away, and then they're there again. I don't think it's up to town residents to have to police their activities. If this was happening outside of this building or somewhere else on town property, I don't think they would be allowed to get away with it. To my knowledge, no kids have been actually taken, and I can't say this, and this is not a criticism against the police in any way, but I don't think they're taking them home to the parents. As far as I know, they're not fining the parents or doing anything about it, other than they just chase the kids away. I understand that Adam feels that their hands are tied, but eventually, we had somebody 2 weeks ago whose kayak overturned there. Maybe some people in the room are aware of this. Whose kayak overturned there, and he had to grab onto the cables to get out of the water, or he would have drowned. So, kayak ended up down in the hydrant plant.
If there was a fence put up on the bridge, could they jump anyplace else? I mean, if we put some kind of fence on top of the bridge where they couldn't get up there?
I don't know what the answer is. They do also jump off the pillars that are on both sides of the bridge too, not just the railing. I'm just bringing it up because you should be aware that I think the town has a legal responsibility to keep this from happening. And you're eventually going to get sued by somebody who gets hurt or killed.
trying to think what else, you had talked about this a couple of times in
Yeah.
the meetings, there were some discussions about additional signage.
I got the signs.
There are additional signs there.
We got the county, Sal called the county early this spring, and 2 days later they were up.
Yeah, the signs say no loitering, no swimming, no jumping. And so they're running back and forth across the bridge too, in the dark. You know, with their swimsuits on, they're just, you know, this is going on all day, all night. Like I said,
Matt,
as
did you
late
say
as
you could
midnight.
ban 'em?
Well, no, we're just asking,
It's a
this isn't a town bridge. The town doesn't own the bridge.
It's county
So
road.
that when the chief is talking about limitations on what the police can do, that's what he's talking about. It's a county bridge. So in terms of, you know, improvements and fence things you're talking about like that, you would have to work with the county on that.
Or even enforcement with the sheriff's office.
Well,
Okay, well,
you know,
get on to the agenda.
Yeah.
Bring it back up again. Sorry. Thank you. Anyone else?
Thank you. I'm gonna look this way because I hate having my back. I taught too many years, you have to face your audience, to sit with my back to them. I have a couple petitions here. I didn't participate in the collection of them, but I signed them because I think it makes common sense. These petitions having to deal with an issue that you already passed, I believe, regarding the location of where you're gonna put the police station in the future. But one of the reasons I volunteered to hand them in is because about 5 years ago to the day, I came to this town board, and I realized the complexion of the board was different. There was Fred Hunston, Wayne Wagner, Dorsey Cramen, and Jatty Van Wert, and Joe. And we made a presentation that before the town tries to come up with any major either expenditure or zoning law or something that's going to affect your life and how you live, you had to really go to the public and you had to answer 4 questions. You had to say, what are we going to do? Why are we going to do it, and do we need it? How much is it going to cost? And who's going to pay for it? Those questions, the town of Ticonderoga constituents that elect you people, that's their right to know those questions. So if they come to a public hearing, they can at least talk intelligently about what the hearing is all about. And yet, when I looked at these petitions that I was asked to be signing, one says, you know, allow the citizens to have the opportunity to hear the proposal, ask the questions, provide an avenue in which we can express concerns. Exactly the same kind of things we were asking for 5 years ago, almost to the date in August. And we even said there's an opportunity for you to do this. You go to the Elks, you go to the VFW, you go to the American Legion, you go to the fire departments. You have these organizations that you visit and you explain to them, look, we've got a police station issue here. We want to build a new one. We've got one we can renovate. What do you think? And you let those people have an idea of what is going on and let them have some feedback and some concern. So if you have a public hearing at that point after, at least they can come, they've heard the pros, the cons, and they can make a legitimate request. They're not just hearing it for the first time while they're sitting here. I wonder why there's not a lot more people from Chilson, because I've heard a lot of people concerned about the water district. But obviously, they're not too sure of what's being proposed totally, so they don't show up. To me, it just makes sense that you have the transparency. Now, after we had that, made that presentation, 3 of the board members voted in favor of it, and a resolution was passed for you people to do just that. I went to Florida for a couple of weeks. When I came back, I found out it was rescinded. And Wayne said, well, we got Everbridge. Well, Everbridge is a nice thing. That's where you get notified on the phone to tell you there's a public hearing tonight. But all that does is tell you a notification. It doesn't ask what, it doesn't tell you why, it doesn't tell you how much, it doesn't tell you who's going to pay for it. and what the alternatives are. So to me, I think you need to revisit that. And if you people that are on the board are not in favor of that kind of transparency, then you should stand up and say, we're not in favor of letting the people take on our own and know what's going on. So that people can make a legitimate decision come November when it's time to vote. And if you do believe in it, there's something there that I can't understand why you wouldn't support it 100%. Why wouldn't you want to get feedback from the people about what you're doing and find out whether or not they're gonna either endorse it for you and say, yeah, go ahead, or have reservations that they have about it and want to talk about those? It's only healthy, guys, for you to get feedback from the town rather than sit there and having to make decisions in a vacuum. Or, I'm not saying you're not trying to do the right thing. Obviously, you're out in a position that pays very little to try to make Ticonderoga a better place. I won't fault any of you for that. Except that when this thing, we brought it forward and they decided against it, one of the reasons was, well, we don't, there's no such way we can have an official referendum. We asked for an informational referendum. It wasn't advisory. Stu Baker came back to the town and said that's illegal to have an official referendum or an unofficial referendum. Let me tell you folks, this is a referendum. These petitions that over 100 people signed is your referendum telling you that they would like to revisit that issue. They're not saying don't do what you are thinking about. They're just saying we'd like you to revisit it. We think there's some more information there that could be brought forward that might change your minds. And to me, that's why I signed it. It makes sense. It makes sense to revisit something that people aren't totally happy with. I'd probably burn my 2 minutes, Joe. Thank you.
How many signatures?
And I'll leave these with Tom.
How many signatures?
Pardon?
How many signatures?
I didn't count them. Like I said, I didn't participate in gathering, but I'm sure there's over 100.
What is the petition actually for?
The petition one is to say that, you want to read it? 'Cause I don't have my glasses in here.
Petition to re-examine decision for town police department location.
Re-examine. And basically, this one is,
Petition to prevent any drug, alcohol, rehabilitation.
right.
I can see it, but I can't
know.
speak.
Apparently there was a proposal there to put a rehab situation in where some people wanted to look at the police department. I'm not even sure you couldn't have both there and get total use of the building. But for whatever reason, you have 100 people saying that they'd like you to re-examine or revisit.
Well,
They're not saying throw it out or take what you guys didn't throw out. They're just saying re-examine it. But I thank you for letting me hear that. And like I said, I think in the position you're in, I wouldn't want me sitting there having to make decisions that I wasn't totally sure that the public was supporting or endorsing.
No one wants to sit here, but everyone wants to come.
Thank you.
I have your, just Keith, I pulled it up because I brought it forward. Your resolution, and one of the items that we know we talked about that I think was brought up by someone about the unconstitutionality of it was item 3 that says, after holding all informational meetings and prior to any public hearing, an informational public referendum will be held to gauge the public support for or against the proposed, in this case, we were talking zoning, which is not a legal thing that the town can do because by virtue of the fact that everyone up here is elected to be the representative of the town, they by default have that ability to.
And I understood
to provide that. Yeah.
When Stu presented it, I understood that, but it just seemed to me you threw the baby out with the bathwater. There was enough good reasons to do that, that if you had to manipulate or get around that, or at least hold the informational meetings, it would have been worth doing. And I remember Matt Fuller was here, and they asked him if there was a problem, and he didn't see one at the time, so, you know, they passed a resolution. Well, not according to the minutes I got, Matt.
Well, one thing that I would like to just make a comment on that is we had, as a municipal facilities meeting, multiple meetings where this was discussed. We had PowerPoints that we put up, and it was open to the public to come and look and ask questions at that time. and we put it out there. So, and it was very transparent about what we were doing, why we were doing it. We answered all the questions that you brought up, how much, why, where, when, all those questions were answered. We did review all the things that you want to review. It was out there, it's in the minutes of the municipal facilities meeting. It was in the, now, did we go personally to different organizations to present that? You know, there's a point where the public needs to inform themselves as well, as opposed to us informing them. We're here, we have meetings, we have board meetings, we have independent committee meetings. The public needs to show up and understand what's happening. We have the same issue with the Portage project. We
You're
have
absolutely
issues
right.
with them, and we are trying to be as transparent as possible, but I can't knock on everybody's door and say, hey, this is what we're doing.
Nobody's asking you to knock on doors. It's like this water district. You could have made a presentation at the Chilson Community Center and probably picked up 5 times more than what you had here tonight.
We've done that.
We've had 4.
We've
We've had 4,
done that.
so
But the thing is, tonight, for example, on this public hearing, you had a thing that's going on at the country club with music being played. You have the Washington County Fish and Game Club meeting. You have other things that people can't always attend. So I know that you're not trying to maybe hide it, you're putting it out there. What I'm saying is, get it out there. Just even if you went to the fire departments, you realize how much that thing will move around, but they'll have an idea to pass it over and make some comments one way or the other. It's just get the information out. It's not, I know what you're saying, that the public should come, but they don't. And
Just as an FYI, last September, we did a meeting with the fire department to talk about, at that time, what was a mutual agreement. And the discussion on the fire department actually, or the police department actually predates everyone on this board by going back, I know Dave was involved in an early committee roughly 10 years ago. So there's been a long history of work that's been done on this over time and quite a bit of money spent. We'll take a look at the petitions. One of those, I think, applies to it. One of those applies more to another board within the town, or maybe, zoning and those things as far as use of a private-owned building that the town that doesn't own. And I will steal a quote from Mr. Rowland, but I don't think it makes good sense for us as a board to make decisions based on blocking the use of a private building within town. And it's a totally separate discussion. There's a lot of passion around that. And if there's a concern about an entity that may go into that, like from a public safety standpoint, and we did get some of that feedback in one of the meetings that Tom and I were chairing, and we did bring that up in public safety where it was addressed previously. You did reference St. Joe's. So there was a concern about one of their other facilities in town. And we did reach out, which I stated I would. And the night that was brought up, I know the chief was here and had the opportunity to speak up. He did provide the data later about the number that were called for there, and we did follow up and would follow up appropriately. For us to make a decision to support the passions of some people that didn't want something else to happen is really, I think, a poor decision on our part. That's why we did it. I think we did do our homework. We got objective, independent feedback from our engineering firm that we have selected as a board multiple years in a row to give us guidance. There's been some feedback that we made a decision quickly. We were getting feedback that we didn't make it quick enough. So,
it's not the only issue I was in reference to though, Mark. That's the one that spurred me to come tonight and talk to you about that resolution that we came here 5 years ago for. And I'm talking about major things that you have, zoning, whatever, passing new laws. To me, it makes sense to really let the people know what you're up to so that they can.
And we can all do a better job at that, communicating. I think that's the one. I've tried with some of my committee meetings to move the times to accommodate some people to evenings. I'm going to continue to do that, especially with this one, because municipal facilities is a passionate one. So, and some of my committee members are, it's more accommodating for them. Tom Thatcher has a business, so to be in the evening, and it works better for some individuals. So that's one thing we're going to do specifically with that committee. There's a lot of activity around that, and Tom and I will take note
I think it's important for us to work collaboratively as a board in those discussions, and I appreciate you guys coming and giving us that input. The last meeting we had was actually off-site. We actually did a tour and walked that. Mr. Wright was there with us from the public health. Mr. Rowland came there, and that was more to evaluate some future steps beyond the police department. I think Mr. Rowland has done a good job supporting and helping getting some of that information out in more public view. But I appreciate that. We'll take a look at those surveys and discuss the feedback, and also better communication based on that. That predates me, but I always think that is more transparency and better communication is.
Yeah, you know, Eagle Lake's a long ways away from you, but it's still part of Ticonderoga. And people don't make that trip down as frequently as they should to a board meeting. And I'm sure your board meetings aren't that heavily subscribed to at any time. So, you know, that's why it's important to get out there into the public. And I realize it's hard to hold a meeting maybe in certain places. That's why I suggested the fire department or the Knights of Columbus, or maybe just the chamber, you know. Those people pass a lot of information around.
They do, right? I think that's.
And you guys, I've known you, Mark, and Joyce, and Dave my whole life. I know you're reasonable people. I've known Joe for the last 10 years, probably, or so, and I don't know Mr. Cunningham as well. But I'm sure that you're reasonable people, and that's all I'm asking is to, you know.
I mean, I thank you because I've learned a lot, and you were the one that actually suggested that, to me, as a development opportunity to run for the board, because there was a lot to learn, and every day I learned something new, and I sincerely mean that. I'll say, so I'm saying in a public forum, we had that conversation at a basketball game. We said, you know, there's a lot to other things you might consider in life, and just from understanding the community, the town board should be something you consider. And there's some days when you get home and maybe want to have an appropriate beverage, and other days.
Your wife ain't choke you yet, but.
Yeah. It's very rewarding. Like, you know, when you drive through town, you see things that are happening, and maybe or maybe not, it didn't have an impact, but some days you're afraid to go to Walmart because you know there's.
Your informational, what he's saying is your informational, the highway you got is broke, and you gotta fix it.
And we're gonna work on it.
That's the point.
Well, I appreciate you.
So, you need more than one information meeting, you need several. You need exactly what that referendum, you wanna read it to them, read it to them.
No,
Read it to them and tell them what it says, so we understand it.
We got it, but I fully understand. So, thank you.
Jesus,
you can read it.
I'll read it.
My brother's playing at the country club, so.
This is the town crier reporting, I wrote this myself. I forgot exactly what it said, but
Rick, is this your resolution?
it says town crier reporting, this is August 17, 2016. It's a resolution of zoning transparency. Be it resolved on August 11, 2016, that prior to Ticonderoga Town Board adopting, amending, repealing or replacing any zoning law, zoning ordinance, or any other law dealing with land use and regulations, Peoplestown of Ticonderoga will be duly and appropriately informed with informational meetings, radio, newspaper, advertising, etc., followed by a non-binding informational referendum, so the voice of the people can be counted to gauge public support for or against new proposed land use regulations. Now, this can be used for any idea that you got, but that thing, Keith and I worked for 4 or 5 months during the summer. I didn't even run my dog, you know? That was a big thing to me, and I left that just to put the time in to. The informational highway's been broke in the town of Ticonderoga for years, and nobody. You got supervisors in here. You got guys who've been around. They can stand up and talk about it. So, in a very straightforward manner, this resolution required town board members to state their position on transparency prior to passing laws and regulations affecting the lives of residents and taxpayers. 3 members voted for the resolution, 2 members voted against it, and it passed with a 3 to 2 vote. We now know how each town board member stands on the issue of transparency and open town government,
as a matter of record in front of the camera in open town board session on August 11th, 2016. Will this resolution be passed into a historical Ticonderoga cornerstone zoning regulation law requiring the people to be duly and appropriately informed and a voice of the people being duly heard and counted? If only 3 of the members voting for the resolution don't change their mind and want to change the consequence, that might be the voters in districts supporting their election as a town board member. Will the reversal in the town board's mind set today be a political consequence in the 2017 general election? In 2017, the voters of 6 districts will answer this question. And they did. But we got promises from you and the other town board members. And you want, after that resolution got passed that night, we came back the next month and you guys decided that you needed more time. We need more time to get this implemented because we're not sure exactly how to do it. So Keith and I looked at each other and we decided, okay, we're all going to work together here. Let's all work together. So we asked you, Joe, and you said, well, give us till the end of the year. Well, that was great. But now let me finish. The end of the year came, I went south dog training and Keith went someplace on vacation. You guys held the board meeting and you rescinded that amendment.
The board rescinded it because it had unconstitutional consequences.
That particular resolution got scrapped. We were counting on you, and you guys promised us that would be our cornerstone law to fix the informational highway. Now, if you don't like that way, I want to hear what you got to fix it. Because we don't see it, otherwise we wouldn't be discussing this issue now. If you got a better way, let's hear it.
Can I ask you one question, Rick?
Let's hear it, Joe.
Besides you and Keith working on that, how many other people participated in putting that together?
And you can say anything you want about that informational referendum.
Because you're asking us to...
But only an informational referendum will allow the voice of the people to be counted after the voice of the people is heard. That's all I got to say about it.
Jeff, do you have anything?
I was just going to comment that depending on what's said in regards to the committee meeting, so,
With regard to which committee meeting?
to the parks.
There, I'll give this to you, Joe. I'm going to ask you right now to reinstate that resolution and pass it with this board right here. I'm going to see who wants to inform the
Please
people
don't point at
right
us.
now.
Please don't point at us.
And who don't. Let's just see who wants to stand up and be counted here.
This is just public comment, so we appreciate the comment. We'll disseminate it and go forth. Yes, one more.
That's just a suggestion. It only takes you about 2 minutes.
This is a positive comment. I see on the agenda that you're going to have a hazardous waste cleanup and make that available to everybody, and that's absolutely great.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very important to keep that out of the water, keep it off the streets, out of the ditches where people just leave stuff. So I'm glad that the town is having that again this year and make it known to everybody ahead of time so they know what to do as far as what they can bring and when. But I think it's very important to have that.
Thank you.
That's the 24th, 25th, 26th.
That's the cleanup. That's the community cleanup days. That's when the transfer station will allow for
One trip.
one trip for homeowners to bring stuff.
But the hazardous waste.
The hazardous waste, that's set up by the county.
That's next on,
Okay.
it's like 2 down.
Okay.
We have another public comment session at the end. I just did it now because I know some people may have other things, and this way they can share. I don't know if you have anything. Yes.
Yes, well, my wife and I both signed both of those petitions. And I know, as Mark has pointed out, that the town board maybe not has jurisdiction over who uses their property for what, although I'm sure that's true. But
town board certainly has jurisdiction over zoning. And I have no objection to the police department being next door.
I get
To
you
me,
working on that.
fine. If I need help, they're close by.
It's about 650 golf outs.
I certainly don't think that it's, I know it's not to my interest, and I don't believe it's for the town's interest, to put a so-called rehab facility, a home for drug addicts that is not even supervised. And I don't want it next door to my house. And I think, again, it comes to this transparency issue. I think that probably 95% of the people in Ticonderoga know nothing about this issue. And if they did, I think they would object just as I do.
Okay, we'll move into the regular meeting. So coronavirus update, the numbers have been increasing as far as positive cases, even from those vaccinated, due to the spread of the Delta variant. CDC recently updated interim public health recommendations, even for fully vaccinated people, that recommend people wear masks when indoor settings. And the county has been having discussions with its own, our own Department of Public Health to determine if we will be invoking return to wearing masks in the near future. So, having said that, there are still efforts by the Department of Health to have areas where they're providing vaccinations, they're providing pop-up clinics throughout the summer, throughout the county, throughout the summer, to vaccinate those who haven't been vaccinated. So if you haven't been, please consider doing so. As was mentioned before, we will be having community cleanup days. This is an event that happens every year. It's sponsored by the Chamber of Commerce, the Ticonderoga Street Partnership, the town, and the details. I don't know if they had made a flyer this year besides that. They did? Okay. We'll have that on the website. I don't have a copy. I just have it. It's going to take place on Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, August 24th, 5th, and 6th, from 8 to 4. It allows for any resident in town one trip of free disposal, with the exception of hazard waste or items containing hazardous waste, as well as tires, food waste, brush, C&D, shingles, and electronics. Of course, there's other restrictions that may apply, so please consult our transfer station attendants as to whether or not items that you bring are indeed eligible. And anyone over the age of 65 and qualified, and those who are disabled, can contact Sal Barneo, the highway superintendent, to have him and his crew pick up items and provide free curbside pickup and delivery to the transfer stations.
But do not put anything out unless you've contacted them.
Don't put anything out unless you've been in contact by them. Yes. Thank you.
Are we going to send something out again, just as a reminder, as a guideline on that, to like Everbridge, or
I was already sent out one.
maybe like right before us, we could.
If you guys want me to send it out again, it was in the paper last week, it was out on Everbridge, it's on our website.
Send it out again. And maybe the hazardous waste day too.
So the hazardous waste day will take place this Saturday, August 28th, so following the townwide cleanup. Between the hours of 8 and 1, residents can take their hazardous waste to the Ticonderoga Highway Garage. And there's a list of items that are considered acceptable. If you don't know whether it's something that could be, please do bring it. And there's also contact information from the DPW staff and the SAP town for other questions. We'll get that posted as well. Actually, it's already posted on the website. We can add that though to the notification that goes out.
It's in Glens Falls paper too.
Essex County having a number of task force that we put together. One is on retention and recruitment. It's not just affecting the Essex County Government Center and the over 450 employees of the county government, but it's certainly affecting a lot of communities as well, and trying to understand some of the implications that we're being affected by here and what we can do about it. So I'm just sharing this because they've been doing some data analysis and hoping, and also having conversations with other employers throughout the county. I know I've had some conversations with IP about the difficulty in bringing new recruits in. Certainly those are discussions that we've been having in prior summers before COVID hit with the Community Advisory Council that was being hosted at North Country Community College. So I just wanted to share from the county's perspective, there's some work that's being done to better understand that and what we can do for our region. Farmers markets coupons, there are still quite a few left, so if you haven't received yours or would like to receive more, you can certainly reach out to the Office for the Aging. And the last thing was brought up at last week's Human Services Committee at the county. There will be a Chalk the Walk and Have the Talk. It's in support of Essex County's Brief Coalition, Brief being bringing resilience in Essex families, building resilience in Essex County Families Coalition. And it will be during the week of September 5th through 11th, with the September 10th being World Suicide Prevention Day. And it's for employers, it's really for anyone. And the idea is that you write inspirational messages in chalk on pavement and sidewalks throughout your home, your business, and in the community to spread awareness. So this too will also be placed on the website and distributed to inform the public. And that's all I have as far as opening comments. There's no Board of Health report, so we'll move into committee reports. Our engineer has been patiently waiting to give a report to the board, so I'll begin with Greg and share with the board updates on the progress of projects.
I will try real quick. On water, the Veterans Road water line project was bid. Got favorable bids in, but waiting on a couple of approvals from EFC, the funding agency, before bringing it to the board for approval, so we'll do that towards the end of the month. We had a little bit of discussion on some planning for some of the future projects in the village. They're just in the infancy stages, water meters, tank replacements, things like that. So we've got started on some of that planning. We'll have some presentations over the next couple of months with some more detail on that. At the time we were setting up a water consultation meeting with a team. We did have that earlier this week, made another round of progress, meeting again in a month, and we're getting there, but there's a lot of detail there, so we're trying to work through it carefully, so the final presentation back to the board and the public is accurate. Yes?
How soon do we have to make the decision on the routing of the feed line to the new water tower site?
Over the next few months. We're able to make progress on just planning without it. We'll be working on that next couple of months.
Thank you.
And then the other active project in water is the lead service replacement. That's also real construction was awarded that a couple months ago. They'll be starting some of those replacements this fall as they're kind of winding down the portage, and then working on those in the spring. So they'll be working on those next month or so. So that's mainly water. The main discussion on sewer, so expect we a little more in-depth discussion on sewer. Even though water's kind of main topic, there are some sewer requirements that are out there. The species permit was updated by DEC in the last couple of months. Within that, there are some new requirements. We gave a summary to the committee of everything that's in the species permit, both short-term and long-term tasks. So we're going to be working with Derek to work through what he's able to do, and if there's anything he would need our assistance on, try to clean some of that up, because your permit is probably one of the more complicated ones in the area. There's a lot of reporting in there. Derek and all those guys take care of most of it. We help them out a little bit, so we're just going through and making sure everything's covered there on that. And then one of the items that comes from the species permit that is a longer term item is the long-term control plan. That's basically the planning document for the work on the collection system. That's the document that's led to a lot of the projects that happen now and lead to most of the funding, and it's required to be updated. And to that end, we applied for an engineering planning grant to actually complete the study evaluation part of the long-term control plan. The proposal for that contract from us is in front of the board tonight. It's a $100,000 grant, it's a $100,000 contract on our end. There's a $20,000 match, but it can be in-kind services, so our goal is to work with Derek and his guys to cover as much of that as possible. If there's some equipment or something that might be needed, we can use that for that as well. So the proposal for our contract, and then once that's done, you guys have already approved the grant previously, we'll finish getting all of that squared away with DFC so that the grant is going, and that's a couple-year process. We went over the scope of work with the committee, but the basics of it are flow monitoring, to study, show the kind of the impacts, the positive impacts from the Portage project and all that. We're looking at the trunk sewer main, so basically from the plant all the way along, basically the main that runs along the river, collecting flow from all of the streets, doing flow monitoring and camera inspections of that, and then doing a study evaluation of at least Lake George and Amherst and the areas that kind of feed that. That's the other main overflow point in town is Alcohol 003, which is on the Chute Lane. We've made a lot of positive impacts to that over the years, but there's still requirements and things to fix up in that area, so that will provide potential for grant opportunities in the future on that, and that meets that DEC requirement of updating the long-term control plan. And a few other miscellaneous items that go with that. We presented the pump station evaluations we done a few months ago, and I'm going to sit down with Derek and go through kind of the game plan if I want to tackle dealing with some of the pump stations. And then the big one is obviously the Portage project. We went through and updated the budget, and as of right now, the project is approximately $140,000 under budget, meaning that there's $140,000 coming back to the town. If there's probably a few more items that will pop up. I'm sure we're still in construction, but we've gotten through the worst of the unknowns because we put the water and sewer lines in, which means we've dug down as deep as we're going to go. So we'll be digging into areas that we've already excavated. So in theory, that means there'll be a lot less issues. I'm sure we'll come across something. But we're in pretty good shape there. In terms of timing, the project is intended to be done by the end of the year. We have to make an official change to the contractor's contract. It officially runs out in September, but they give me a couple more months, so we'll work on getting that to you guys. The only hiccup to that would be if winter comes in October or sooner, then asphalt plant shut down. But as of right now, they're projecting to be done at the end of the year. There'll be spring and restoration, clean up in the spring. And we set a date for just an informational meeting next week, the 17th. Kevin Farrington, or the main engineer that worked on the road design, and Mike Metcalf, our construction manager, will be down to talk to any property owners that want to go over the layouts and what the sidewalks are going to look like. They're going to be starting that work pretty much right now.
And we sent letters out to all the residents that will be affected, so.
I think there's some materials arriving today that were curbs and pieces of parts and hopefully.
Yeah.
Portage, yeah.
Basically, they're now the water and sewers, and they're working on the storms. As the storm goes in, they'll start behind it with asphalt, sidewalk, curb, and all that.
Okay.
It'll start to look like something fairly soon. And then the other piece, and I think there's a resolution on board with Nancy's departure. She was the official NBO, which is the minority business officer. All the grant funds require somebody from the town be in charge of all of their ensuring all the requirements are met. She was officially that person. I believe you have a resolution to select, I think, Amy to be that person. In practice, the county and in fact with us work on the majority of it, we'll work with Amy to make sure it is taken care of. So I think that's everything.
All right, we have a couple of resolutions then. The first is the engineering planning grant.
I don't mean to interrupt you, I have just one question, if you don't mind. Up in front of Wayne Wagner's house, in doing that project, where there's a ledge close to the roadway, when over the years it's meant to be done, and the ledge always ends up damaging the roadway and stuff. Do you know if that was taken care of? I don't know.
Which house number is that?
I don't know the number
It's about 100 yards up from
Lodges.
the lodges where the railroad jump is. They did a lot of blasting there.
I didn't know.
Oh, where it kind of, the grade changes?
Yes.
Where that turn?
Yes, just above there.
It's been an extra
Yeah.
battery.
I'm not sure off the top of my head.
It's right near Battery Street.
Yeah, just above Battery
Two
Street.
houses up
We
on the
did-
left-hand side.
We did, especially leaving that area, definitely change the road grades and elevations, taking out quite a bit of ledge there. But I'm not sure off the top of my head, so I'll look at
And
it.
just
No, it's good.
questioning it because it's not right. Is it redoing it? I didn't know.
No, it's a good question.
I know they blasted there because it's right in front of Tina's dad's house. Took out.
No, I'll take a look at it. Now's the time to fix it. We make changes if we need to, so.
So resolution to approve the agreement with AES for the long-term control plan project services. This is project number 5001, awarded through an EFC engineering planning grant of $100,000 in addition to the town match of 20, which we will be handling through in-kind services.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried.
Aye.
Resolution to appoint Nancy Treadway as the water sewer clerk part-time with benefits at the hourly rate from 1987 and to waive the pre-employment screening process.
So moved.
Second.
And then just for clarification purposes, Nancy had resigned, but is willing to stay on the help train, the next clerk, so that submission happened. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
No one opposed, so carried. And as Greg had alluded to earlier, there's an appointment, which later on in the agenda, but we'll just do it now. It's a resolution to appoint Amy Demon as the minority business officer for the town of Ticonderoga for the requirement of these projects. All of that.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. Okay. Anything else?
Do you need anything else? I was planning on heading out.
Yeah, I can find it.
Thank you.
Safe drive.
Okay, highway?
Highway, meeting was held July 27th. I was the only member present, as there was a number of outstanding issues with some of the members, so that they didn't attend. Others in attendance was Mark Wright, Greg Swart, Joyce Cooper, and Maddie Chapman. There was no public discussion, so I just went through with a report of what I knew was taking place in the highway department. One thing of note is put here, because the rest of the minutes are online. I'm not going to take the time to read all the minutes. But there was a scope of work and a contract for Avery Energy that was completed and put together and submitted to them. And they have come back with a positive agreement to that scope of work and contract. So we now know exactly what their scope of work is and what the scope of work of the highway department is going to be in relation to replacing those sidewalks. We are going to make a walkthrough, so you'll see some of us about and around town in the not too distant future with the foreman from Avery to mark the sidewalks that are going to be replaced. And those are the ones that we'll do first. And then depending on the amount of funding that may or may not be available after we achieve those priority sidewalks, then we will perform some additional work on that. If any of you driving around town, you've seen that the highway department has completed the paving on Racetrack Road, Canfield Road, and Cannonball Run. And so we want to thank them for getting that done. And I believe that they have done those three and are still under budget for what was budgeted for their highway budget. So that's good news. And other than that, there's nothing else to report. So the next meeting will be held at August 31st at 9:15.
Great. Municipal facility evaluation?
A couple of notes. Did postpone the meeting, unfortunately. exposed to somebody with COVID-19, so was isolated for a period of time, so I kept a low profile. But with that said, we do have, AES is finalizing a proposal for us as far as site plan and things. We should have that for the finance meeting. And then they asked about, and I did talk to the chief about going over and visiting with Chief Merkel. We're looking to schedule a date with that jointly. The other item of note is AES is constructing as a project in Malone for a new municipal town shed facility for them. It was similar in size to what we would need, and they just said, I want to consider going up there, so I was going to have that conversation with Sal. I would, no cost to the town if we did decide to make that trip, so that is something I was going to approach Sal about. So we should have that information back from AES for the next meeting on that. And we're looking at rescheduling the municipal facility evaluation, just working out with the committee members to get them that date for a pending meeting, and then also for the meeting for the month. I'm looking at doing that in the evening, so if other people want to attend, and I don't have any resolutions.
Airport met July 13th of last month, and also this month on August 3rd. And for the month of June, we sold 1,314 gallons. And for the month of July, it was over 2,200 gallons of fuel that was sold. We've also received a new delivery, so we fill up. And a number of items have been still in the works. We had upgraded our QT pod fuel dispensing unit as we were having some issues with some of the firmware. So that seems to have been resolved. Working with the FAA to lift the night landing approach restrictions. They've since changed their process by which this happens, and we're still trying to learn to make sure we fulfill all the requirements that they then can issue us the ability to lift that restriction. We've had some conversations about acquiring more dirt and more spoils to fill in the low-lying areas for future expansion, and we're looking to put together a policy that would address that, where we would get it, where we would locate it. There's also been discussion about the relocation of the former airport beacon and tower that is currently on IP property, and we were working with the FAA and the APA to get approval for the relocation of that, as well as the restrictions as to the height of that structure when it's placed, when and if it's placed over on the town property that currently is off of the Shanahan Road. So there's still some further discussions being had. And then one of the other last items is we're looking to coordinate with our groundskeepers and with our pesticide control certified person to handle some of the growing weeds in and around the runway, and the taxiway, and the apron, as well as maintaining trimming of those grass that's growing up along the runway lights for better visibility. And the next meeting is scheduled for September 8th. And there's just a couple resolutions. The first one is we've been the recipient of three, this is the third one, 3 grants that have come out of the coronavirus pandemic. The first one was for the CARES Act for about $20,000. The second one was the second recovery monies that came out late last year for $9,000, and this newest one is through the ARPA, the American Rescue Plan Act, in the amount of $22,000. So I need a resolution to accept that money in the amount of $22,000 and for it to be expended at the Thai airport, and to authorize the supervisor to execute the agreement with the FAA.
I'll move it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
I so carry. And then the next 2 resolutions go hand in hand. They have to do with approving the professional services agreement with Passero Associates, that's our consulting engineering firm, for the next project, which is an environmental assessment project at the Thai airport in the amount amount of $162,400, and to authorize the supervisor to execute that said contract.
I'll move it.
That,
Second.
that one has a town component, so all these airport projects are typically 90% covered by the federal funds, and then a 5% state and a 5% local match, and so ours is roughly, it was $8,700 in that ballpark. So, first and second, any further discussion on that project? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, so carried. And the additional resolution along with that is a resolution to authorize the supervisor to execute the grant agreement with the FAA for that environmental assessment project at the airport.
I'll move it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. So we'll move on to building public safety.
We met July 27th. Following committee members are present: myself, Chief Holder, Dave Burrows, Leanne Peters, and Jen Gander. Guests were Mark Wright, Bill Morse, Joyce Cooper, and Matt Fuller. The meeting was called to order at 8 o'clock. Public participation. Bill Morse states, states he has submitted 2 petitions to the town board regarding the speed limit on Kennedy and Brookwood Drive. The speed limit is currently 30, and he would like to see it reduced to 20. Mr. Morse states that everyone on Kennedy and Birchwood has signed a petition to move forward. Mr. Morse adds that the employees from Mountain Lake Services drive way too fast. I reached out to Sal from the Highway Department, and he stated that he has nothing to do with doing that. And Matt states that the town board will have to pass a resolution and contact DOT. Should we do that tonight?
We talked about that at your last board meeting. I explained to you what I have to do, that the board has to pass a resolution. There are forms that I have to fill out, and when we left the last board meeting, you were gonna have to come to your public safety meeting, and you and the chief were gonna meet with them and go up to the area and talk with the people, so.
I think he did go up, I think.
So it's up to you if you wanna move this forward
Yeah,
that
that-
way, or if you wanna still,
No, I would like to move it forward and make it
okay?
now.
So your resolution is to do they have to do
Two studies.
a speed study.
Right.
It takes up to a year.
I know. They did that.
I let you know that too last month, but you can get it started.
Start someplace.
Part of my recollection is it had to do with enforcement, right? So if they got a reduction in speed, it doesn't necessarily mean that anything will change. They need to then enforce it. And if they're already exceeding the speed limit now.
I don't know how they get up to 30 down the hill.
Neither do I.
Just as you
I mean, that's,
They're ready to go smoke that cigarette.
yeah. No, I mean, it's
Yeah.
one day.
But that's what you talked about at the last board meeting, is that it really is an enforcement issue.
I know.
It's whatever you want to.
But I told them I would.
And anyone reached out to someone at Mountain Lake Services that oversees that?
Yeah, they did come. I asked Sean, that's great, he went up one night, right after our meeting. Adam was out of town, so I asked Sean. Sean went up and talked to him, and then Adam went up another time. I don't know who he talked to, just said that there'd been a lot of complaints and stuff.
Can I make
So
a
you don't know that
suggestion?
anything's been done yet then?
I don't
So
think-
it's up to you if you want to pass the resolution to do it.
I don't see how you could arrest him.
Can I make a suggestion? Why don't you have the police sit up there 2 or 3 different times? It's 150 feet, the distance they're talking on the one section.
That's what I was saying,
Go up and see whether they're speeding, or if it appears that they're speeding
I think it was,
to the public.
yeah, I think there was more than just speeding, there was also some littering and.
they were throwing cigarettes on your.
And we can reach out to the executive director of Mountain. I don't know if that's been done, but
You gotta be smoking if you do 30 up there.
That's a good
Yeah,
idea.
and it might just be the perception of the people there.
Yeah.
But you can still try it, because it
Yeah.
takes such a long time to do it. I mean, it's just paperwork
Start the
just
process.
paperwork I have to do.
Go from
But,
there.
I have to know certain, we can work on that, but if you want to do it, then that's.
So the resolution is to start the study on the,
To request a speed reduction on Kennedy and Birchwood Drive. That's all it has to say.
okay,
I just don't see how 30, they can go 30 out there.
So,
I mean, that's from me to the wall.
oh, we want to move it,
Is that what we want to do?
Yeah.
Do the study.
do the study?
And it's probably a good thing to do, right? You got all the school bus traffic there, going to that hill, a number of things. There's a number of good reasons to do it, so I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried.
Excuse me, Mark Wright thanks Officer Waller and Officer Towne for their presence over the weekend for the Star Trek event. Chief Hulbert gives his monthly report in the attachment. Joyce Cooper states that she has concerns requiring the safety and well-being of the lifeguards. Joyce asks who is in charge, who responds to calls because of the beaches in Washington County and in Butler. Chief Hulbert states that the Ticonderoga Police Department will respond and make a presence if need be, and wait for the if necessary for either Washington County Sheriff or State Police to arrive. Chief Hulbert states he isn't against sitting down with the lifeguards and talking with them on what they should do in different situations. The Coast Department, Rihanna, gave a monthly report. Dave Burrows talks about the zombie properties and funding. They are trying to get the burnout structure taken care of. He states recently talked to the demolition company that took down the structure on Cassie Street, and he says, as far as the state is concerned, anytime there's a fire in one of the buildings, don't do asbestos testing. You just treat it as if it is asbestos. So moving forward, we no longer will test for asbestos on the burnout structure. We will just treat it as if the asbestos is there. He also stated a couple of issues to address. First, being on 8 John Street, a neighbor had a branch come down during the windstorm and wanted to know if the town owned the property. She was told no, and the town did not know. 28 Lead Hill is also a burned out structure. We found out last week that is listed for sale and have a contract with the owner. As far as I am asbestos survey that was done, we paid for it out of the funds. The agreement that was signed was that she was going to take it down in 60 days. She was given more time because of the lack of funds. Now it's been 2 years, and we found out last week that it's listed for sale. I contacted a realtor and a lawyer was unaware it was a burned out structure. I provided a copy of the agreement to the lawyer. Adams had approximately 458 calls to service, incident reports 21, arrests 11, uniform traffic tickets 96, accidents investigated 5. Speed trailer is currently on Lake George Avenue. The new vehicle, the 2021 Dodge Charger, the police package from Briar Fleet, no new updates. On July 20th, 2021, the department responded to Highland Street for shots fired call. As a result of the police investigation, Corey Benedict was arrested for allegedly discharging a firearm in 500 feet of a dwelling and resisting arrest. During last month, the department received multiple reports of disturbances at the Ticonderoga Municipal Beach. The department wants to remind the public that visiting the beach is a privilege and not a right. If you just disregard the rules and do not follow the instructions of the lifeguards employees by the town, you may vacate the beach and may also be banned from returning. The Coast Department had 5 issued permits, 1 safety inspection, 3 orders to remedy, 2 were remedied, and yet code violations of garbage on George Street and mowing on Treadway. That's it.
Buildings and grounds.
Do you have anything to report, Jay?
Nothing, we just got the railing up at the armory, the new, for the thing. I had to put a rope up so they couldn't get skateboards on it. I tell you what, that's what they were doing. And then Dave Ross has been here doing some stuff, fixing the hatchway, fixing doors and stuff. Other than that,
They did a nice job.
yes, he does nice
Yeah.
job.
Thank you for doing that. Are you done?
Yep.
Okay. Parks and Rec. We met on July 20th, and the first thing was Terry Smith joined the meeting, and he addressed the committee asking us to consider an 8-foot by 2-foot professionally designed sign in brown with the words museum in gold to be approved for the Heritage Museum at the entrance to Bicentennial Park. The sign will be placed between the building and the road into the park. The museum board feels the sign might attract more visitors to the museum who might not otherwise notice the building as they drive by. The committee appreciated the museum's concern, but did not support the specific sign due to its color, size, and location. The committee also expressed the need to publicize all 3 of the museums on Montcalm Street and direct visitors from the Ford intersection to their locations also. It was suggested this sign project be directed to the Ticonderoga Montcalm Street Partnerships Design Committee, which has the task of overseeing the appearance of Montcalm Street, and the streetscape plan, which was developed for the town by Elon Associates. Terry will be advised when this committee is meeting, and that has happened, by the way. Vandalism. Grant Spalding informed the committee that park vandalism has increased recently with picnic tables defaced and benches torn out of the ground. An additional camera is needed at the Kissing Bridge. Trees are blocking some of the views of the current cameras, which are located near the Heritage Museum. A camera is also needed at the beach, where recent vandalism includes paintball damage in the pavilion and at the beach building's entrance. The beach open-close sign was also pulled out of the ground and wedged into a lifeguard chair. Some kind of statement, I guess. Park bollards. These have not been installed yet. When installed, they may create a problem for the grounds crew, who collect garbage twice weekly. They work on a tight schedule, and removing the bollards may present a problem. This crew has only 2 vehicles at their disposal: a pickup truck, which is used for many tasks, and an aging dump truck, which is used for garbage removal. This issue will be addressed. New location for the grounds crew. I noted that when the police department has a new home, the grounds crew will also need one, preferably a central location similar to the one they have now. This issue should probably be taken to the Municipal Facilities Committee. Eagle Scout project. Monty Benedict is making progress on his project. Baskets and poles as well as benches have been ordered and delivered. Dave Woods and Highway Superintendent Sal Barneo are helping with some of the technical aspects of the project. His project also includes the installation of several smaller height backboards and baskets for younger children, which is a nice addition. And if you drive by, you'll see the work is in progress. And he called me the other day, and he's working against a tight schedule. He's hoping this will be done by August 31st, but I don't know. He's got a lot to do yet. Public comment. Jeff Cook addressed the committee regarding the lack of maintenance of land at the western end of Tim Pan Alley bordering the Lake George outlet. He feels the land should be maintained and used to launch canoes and kayaks as well as fishing as it was in the past. The property is presently overgrown and unattractive and is bordered by well-maintained properties. Concern was expressed about the width of the road and the lack of parking and space to turn around without using private driveways. Until recently, some committee members did not know this property existed and were unsure what was or should be its intended use. Our town clerk will research the ownership, road width, and right-of-way of this property and report at the August meeting of Parks and Recreation. And our next meeting is next week, Tuesday, August 17th.
Yeah, that's what I want to comment about. I I provided a bunch of information
Yeah, can we wait till the public comment?
on the website.
Okay.
Yeah, sorry.
I know you.
Yeah, no problem.
I have a couple resolutions to deal with here.
Yeah, so resolution to accept the resignation of Emma Murphy as library aide effective August 14th.
Who would that?
Which was read.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And a resolution to advertise for library aide part-time no benefits.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. Mark, youth?
Yeah, we got together, we didn't have a quorum, but we did discuss our job description for youth program director and finalizing some details around that. Pam Mosier and I spent some time going through the armory just to finalize how the youth program starting in the fall will use and share the facilities and schedule things more effectively and look at some we need to do some housekeeping on some obsolete materials that are taking up some space so we can better use the program. We identified a couple maintenance things that we would address before we get the kids back in there as well. So that's coming up. And then we do have a couple of resolutions on
Resolution advertised for the recreational specialist for the 2021-22 youth ski program.
I'll move it.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. And a resolution to announce fall soccer signups August 16th and 17th, 5 to 7 here in the community building.
So
I'll
moved.
move. Second.
Well, you don't need to, it's already advertised, I just wanted you to
Oh,
announce
to
it.
announce it, I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's been in the paper, it's on Facebook.
Yeah, we don't need a.
Resolution. Anything else?
Sorry, I thought that was clear about that.
We did say announce, but I wasn't thinking.
That's okay.
We'll just do it.
No.
All set.
Okay.
Human services.
Yeah.
I'm talking to the senior chairman, they're considering starting in-person meetings again, maybe later this month or maybe in September. Of course, with the recent uptick in coronavirus in the area and around, that may not happen, but they would let me know when they decide to resume in-person meetings. But right now, they're still not meeting in person.
Health insurance, I don't have anything to report, but we will be having a meeting in September. We'll have updated, hopefully the rates close to being finalized from the state. Nothing with regard to contract negotiations and IT cable TV. We are just about finished with all the upgrades to our computer system. There's I think 2 more computers left to be done, and then they will be working with every user to migrate their PIN system to the server and build our file folder. What do you call it?
Outlook.
Server architecture.
Outlook is a much better tool.
We've had Outlook, it just hasn't been.
It was in that other format.
Oh, yeah. And then as far as the cable TV goes, Spectrum has 3 new announcements. These will all be posted on the web. But, some pricing adjustments for broadcast TV surcharge and Spectrum receiver digital adapters. Notification of the Latino View high definition channel on 947 will be launched, and so will WCAX Channel 3, Channel 6, and WYCI Channel 3 on the basic tier network. And all these will be placed online.
I was just told that they've actually installed cable on Hudson Road. Margaret was telling me that.
Yeah, they've been working. I think they've been working out there.
They were thrilled.
So they've made some progress in the county. We have, working with Lake George, Lake Champlain Basin Program, Regional Planning Board, and some of the other counties in the North Country. They've been really taking a proactive approach to putting the pressure on the state and the federal government for additional funding for broadband. And so there should be some movement hopefully soon with some of the grant funding that's out there now for some of the small rural communities. So out to be very successful. Okay, on the regular resolutions, resolution to accept and correct minutes of the regular town board meeting July 8th.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. Resolution to accept and award the town facilities electrician bid to Our Electric.
I'll move it. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Carried. A resolution to accept the resignation of Terry Benedict from the planning board effective July 26th.
I'll move it.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Tom and Joyce. Right. So carried. I have another resolution that I forgot to include in the original, but the IDA has been, there's a proposed high-power cable line that's going to be laid along the floor of Lake Champlain to provide power from Canada to New York City. And so the IDA has been working with that agency to come up with a payment in lieu of taxes agreement, and has shared that with the towns, of which Ticonderoga is one of them, as to what that proposal will entail. And so they're just looking for letters, resolutions of support from those towns neighboring Lake Champlain that would be affected as they proceed to move forward with negotiations on that proposed pilot. So the resolution is a resolution of the town of Ticonderoga consenting to a proposed pilot agreement by the Essex County Industrial Development Agency with respect to this certain project to be undertaken by CHPE LLC, and authorizing the town supervisor to execute and deliver a certificate in the furtherance of the same. I think I shared with you kind of documentation. I don't know if you guys have any questions.
And just for clarity, it's not like we could go and negotiate something different. It's, the IDA is the lead agency, so we're just showing support.
That's right.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. Tanya, I'll get you that resolution. Thanks, Joyce. So now the financial resolutions, resolution authorizing the creation of the following new budget accounts. This Clinton County one is a special payroll deduction item for an employee who lives outside of Essex County. And the other one has to do with this recent ban we've taken out to cover the short-term financing challenges that EFC had presented in the short term until that rolls up in the long term.
I'll move it.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Did you miss Amy?
I think you did.
No, I did that
We did
earlier.
that in the public works
Oh,
section.
Oh, okay.
only because that applied to Nancy's, Nancy was
Right.
like, so carried. Resolution authorizing the following budget transfers. We've had this pesky credit card fee that apparently it's taken a little bit of coordination, but we don't typically have fees, but because of the scheduling of our town board meetings and when abstracts get paid, somehow there's been some lingering charge, so that's what that $12 is for. But we've been able to clarify that moving forward. They'll actually give us credit for this, but we have to make payment first. There's been a change in status regarding the benefits in the town clerk office. The next one, the program for the aging and drug screening. Apparently there's been some changes in their payment structure, and some of these dollar amounts go back to last year. So just taking into account that. And refuse and garbage coupons, I think we've had a preponderance of more purchases of coupons, given the fact that Crown Point doesn't have a transfer station, and just the number of additional in Putnam. So
Because they don't have recyclables, so they're just bringing their garbage to.
so we get increased expenses, appropriations for coupon production. And then some cemetery charges, their motor fuel and general supplies. I think these had to do with some expenses that were done. I need to talk to Bill Dahlbeck a little more specifically. There's a few other purchases that I know we earmarked in the past, but they hadn't come to fruition. So he's finally getting around to taking care of them. So anyway, it's just under $9,000 can be taken from contingency to cover those, leaving our balance at just over $41,000 for the rest of the year.
I'll move those.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. This next resolution is a budget adjustment. There was a resolution that was passed back in the spring. It was back in the spring. We were going to utilize the capital reserves from the sewer equipment and sewer infrastructure funds, which amounted to $283,000, and utilize that for this wastewater work that was done at the wastewater treatment plant for some temporary ventilation. And so we just need a resolution to just making that adjustment for that work as it's now being charged to that account.
I'll move it.
Second. All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. Resolution authorizing the following interfund transfer. This one is for Eagle Lake and Chilson, and then some additional work that was done towards that proposed project.
I'll move
Second.
All in favor?
it. Aye.
So carried. The next one is resolution authorizing the following interfund loans. The first one is with regard to the water meter project, just until that funding comes in. The second one has to do with this continuation of the airport apron project. And again, that one, once the funding is received, it'll be paid back to that fund. And the last one is the master drinking water project of $16.
I'll move those.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. And a resolution to pay the abstract.
I'll move it. Second.
All in favor?
Who did that? I'm sorry.
Joyce.
Or
Dave made the motion, Joyce second.
all in favor?
Aye.
So carried. And a resolution to accept the supervisor's report as submitted.
So,
Joyce and Tom.
Yeah.
14.
All in favor?
Aye.
So carried. Tanya, do you have anything else?
I don't think so. You lost me a long time ago.
No, here, I just want to make sure I got pulled out. Sorry.
I had,
These are gonna fall asleep from the heat.
nothing?
No, I don't.
Do you have anything?
Just a couple of things. One, as you know, the town board has until December 31st to ask the Cannabis Control Board to prohibit on-site consumption licenses and or retail sales licenses in the town. Our window is closing, so the town board wants to take some direction on that. The option here is to make that request by local law, subject to permissive referendum. So obviously, if we started that process in September, the local law would be until October, which is kind of close to the end of the year. So what is the will of the town board?
I vote that we opt out. That's the proper terminology. Just like,
That's what everybody's
Call it
saying. It's really
prohibition.
the way the statute is written, it's a request to the Cannabis Control Board to prohibit those two licenses in the town. So I'm curious to see if that control board is actually going to say no to anybody, but that's the way the statute's written. So it's not just a...
well, I think it's my understanding that we can elect to get back in at some point.
You can repeal that.
Have to review and repeal that. So I think until we can get some input from the local constituents in town and have time to review that, then I would suggest that we move forward with prohibiting that until we can get some information and decide what the people in the town of Ticonderoga want, and make sure we've got proper zoning laws in place to zone that, so it can't just prop up anywhere we want to go. So that's my thought.
I'll go on then.
So you just need,
You don't need a
If you direct
resolution.
me, and I will have
hit
it.
that from us to go ahead and draft it.
That sounds like a consensus.
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
And the other thing is, I've been lingering around for quite some time. Mr. Cunningham owns a piece of property over on Glen Road. And years ago, back in 2007, I think there was a boundary swap before he owned it with the town on that property, and a subsequent survey showed that there's a sewer line on the property. So I drafted an easement for the town along with the TP form. And all that we need is the offer of dedication from Mr. Cunningham's LLC to the town board, and the town board could adopt a simple resolution. Obviously, you should recuse yourself from any vote on that subject. But it is a no cost. It's not asking for a cost for the easement. It's obviously correct. A reservation that we probably should have known about back then.
You need a resolution for that, or is it?
If he's got to offer it, and then
No, okay, and then recuse himself.
I'll write a letter, I'll write an
Yeah,
email.
we'll do it September.
Right, yeah, I'll write an email. We could do it at the finance committee meeting if you want to, but I will have an email out to the board.
Okay.
And then one thing I did want to note, just because the public record, people are watching it. So the portage funding last month, the town board is well aware of it. We ran into an issue with EFC fronting the money on a $5 million grant town had received. So we were able to work with the bond council to get that covered through alternate financing. It would have been at interest through EFC, and we got it quicker through a private bank, Bank of Greene County, at the same interest rate, 0.47%. In the meantime, EFC is going back to correct its wrong, so that ultimately it's going to happen quite quickly, because that portage project will come to an end about roughly the same time as the EFC amends the project, so that we can go in long-term financing. So, obviously, thanks to the town's bond council and Bank of Greene County for stepping in quickly with a $5.8 million loan at 0.47%. And then obviously it will down pay those bills and things like that. Very interesting situation. I've never seen it before, but obviously we will keep closer ties on the FC going forward. They were great to work with, no issues there. But that was it.
Anything else? Okay, we'll go back out to public comment.
In regards to the minutes and Parks and Rec meeting or whatever, in regards to my comments, I spoke about Ticonderoga Alley potentially becoming a canoe kayak point of access. And it was discussed at the committee meeting and stuff like that, whatever there's concerns about. The road isn't wide enough to turn around on, and there's a few other concerns and stuff. I did some research on my own. I went out during the meeting, got a copy of the tax map showing the roadway going through there. It was discussed, Bill Dahlback was here at the meeting for part of the meeting and stuff like that. And I both discussed the point that that was a town road, or actually a village road of the village of Alexandria that apparently predated the village of Ticonderoga. I had a copy of the map actually I years ago myself. I provided a copy of the map to Tanya, and I'm assuming that she probably gave everybody a copy of it, or has it availability of a copy of it. That actually showed on the village of Alexandria map that is a 2-chain road, which equals that's a 60-foot wide road. It is not the width of the blacktop that's there. I spoke to John Deming, who did not have the thing in front of him, but from what he told me, his recollection is that that was a 60-foot wide road. And he also referred to the 1808 map. I spoke to the director of the Lake George Park Commission and told him emphatically that I was not a representative of the town. I was simply asking a question. And I gave him the information that I had discussed. And he said that they did not take jurisdiction over what he termed as a car top launch. If that does come to fruition, he would like the town to notify Lake George Park Commission, but they don't control that, same as they do like a regular boat launch. The area, some people here may know, whatever, that area prior to the state putting in the state built boat launch was the town boat launch for many years. There's cribbing still in the lake from where our dock system was in there. It hasn't been maintained for probably 30 years other than being plowed. I know people on the street have gone down there and cleaned it up off and on over the years. Nobody's done it recently. It's all completely overgrown. The one thing that I have a big concern over is Ticonderoga, to the best of my knowledge, within their own boundaries, is the only municipality that has no access to Lake George. You have the beach, which is in a town, or a town of Putnam, which you have issues with the issues you discussed earlier, where technically you're going to have to take in contact Warren County and ask for them to request Ty to go there to respond unless it's an emergency. That's getting on another subject. But what you should, just as a suggestion, you should make a contact Warren County and set some kind of, or Washington County, I'm sorry. You should set up some kind of a written protocol so the police can respond there automatically.
We're talking.
Okay? Because right now, and for years, there's been nothing out there. Anyways, the whole point is I think it would be very detrimental in the long run to either get rid of or just disregard that piece of property on my big concern is, as I've heard discussion relatively recently and in the past on a couple of occasions, is potentially surplusing it and just selling it. Right now, potentially it benefits 3 people. I can't see where you have something that is the town's, why would it not be beneficial to make that an access point for a certain couple specific purposes, whatever, and if nothing else, keep that property under the town's thumb, to get rid of the only piece of viable property that the town has for access to the lake would be ludicrous in my opinion. A neighbor of mine had brought it to my attention, and that's why I brought it to the committee's attention. A former board member talked to me about it and stuff like that, whatever. I just think that that would be an ideal situation. Who was concerned about that it may be too overwhelming to take care of. It would probably take a day's work to take care of it once. And I'm sure that people would assist in taking care of it following that. There are a number of people who would volunteer to help do what can be done to deal with it. My understanding from when I was on the board previously is there is actually a garage built on top of the town's property. Same as there's been a garage over on Lord Howell built over the top of the sewer line. Same kind of things in the past, whatever. That's neither here nor there, but the point being is the town taxpayers have been paying for years and years and years to pay taxes. Why not have access to that? So, all the information I provided, I don't know.
You've already given it to,
I gave the next day to Tanya the information.
It's on the agenda for next week.
okay.
You know, I can just ask you next week when I'm at the meeting. I just didn't know if anything had gone beyond what I provided.
It's what I outlined in my minutes.
I guess that's it.
Thank you. Yeah, Bob.
Joe, I got 2 things. One is, I don't know if you've got any complaints, but boy, I've got a ton of complaints on Spectrum. They increased my rate 18%. So it wasn't any sense to me. I did talk to Dan Steck, I did talk to Madison, so that's within the state. This is FCC, so I had to contact Lisa Stefanik's office, and she contacted the FCC. I just got a letter on that. Because those are exorbitant, increases, absolutely outrageous. In fact, I know a lot of people cancel Spectrum, that I know of. But then I see right now that they're increasing the broadcast TV surcharge, and they're also increasing every receiver and digital adapter by $1. I think it's $8 for an adapter, and, no, I think it's $8 for the receiver and $12 for the adapter. So if you got 2 TVs, you already paid $24, and they're going to increase it 26. I think the town needs to take a stand pretty soon. If you keep getting complaints, and I don't know if you have on it, but Spectrum is out of control. They're a monopoly is what they are. They have no competition, so they can raise their rates. So a letter, I think, if it continues, a letter's got to come from the town board complaining. You are the administrator of Spectrum. The town is administrators of Spectrum. You can send a letter or in a heartbeat saying that these prices are out of control and you're getting a lot of complaints. That was my first thing. The second thing is, Mark, when is your next municipal meeting? I got a chance to talk to Tom. Thank you very much I called Tom about the police department building, and I still got concerns over that. I mean, he was really good, and he talked me through it a lot. But again, I'm looking at a 30-year-old building, and why aren't we renovating that? And I got a chance to talk to Tom, and I understand a little bit more, but I'd like to understand a whole lot more. Because you're talking about 2/3 of the use of it. You put the court up there, and you put the probation office up there, and you put the police up there. I don't know why we use 2/3. But again, I'm not questioning anything, but I would like to become more informed. People probably think, Dave got to me. No one gets to me. No one gets to Bob either. I'm just as close to every point of view as I am to Dave. The police department, way back, has always been dear to my heart. And the sooner we get them established, the happier people in Ticonderoga are going to be. They've been sitting in that pile over there long enough. It's about time that we make some kind of progress. And I think that the progress that would be made to me, and again, I want to get to your meetings, is to take the HHH building and renovate that into a police department. That's me. But again, Tom kind of, steered me in another direction, so I want to get more informed. So I'm just asking you, when is your next meeting? Because I would like to attend them.
Well, I'll let you know, because we're working on scheduling that. It's just a matter of getting the committee.
Generally, are they in the morning, or the afternoon, or the evening?
We're moving them to the evening just for, because of public interest and just from none of the committee members.
When have they been done in the past? Because Tom mentioned that, I haven't been able to make it. They were 1 o'clock?
Then 1 o'clock in the afternoon when we have our other committee meetings on Tuesday.
I see it. I knew there was a reason why I couldn't make it.
Yeah.
Tuesday, I tried that stupid senior boss. So
Yeah,
I'll get that out pretty soon.
You are now.
So what's stupid, ride the bus?
Are you still driving?
I'm older than most of those people I pick up, Tom.
Is that a big sell?
Please let me know, or I'm sure you're going to make it
We
public.
didn't have them in the afternoon because
That was stupid. I should have
He's trying to be cognizant of
Shameful, Bob. I'm sorry. I'm getting tired. I'm getting old and I get tired.
We try to be, because we had some input from our engineering partners, they're traveling down here, so we try to do, there's some benefit to consolidating meetings when you can work together and have team members and not having people, work-life balance, but we're looking at moving that one specifically to evenings, which our last couple have been in the evenings. The one specifically when we had quite a bit of attendance here, and then the one when we went to the municipal building and walk around. But what we really need to be careful of is I understand there's a lot of passion about other potential uses for that building and not mixing those discussions because they're two very different.
And I agree with you. You can't mix that. You got to separate that.
That's where most of the feedback has been coming, and they're two very different discussions. I fully agree with you. The police department, I think, since we've kind of taken this on, we have made good progress. Because if you put on a timeline of when the discussion started about the police department and how much we've been working on it, the timeline starts here, and there's about this much of it that we've been really engaged in, at least this board. So I take it a little personally when I get some of that criticism, which is fine, because I think we've moved pretty quickly, on some of that, but I appreciate the input on that as a resource, as some other things. I mean, somebody just recently drove in front of my house and recommended we use the old car wash. They think that'd be a good solution, the one up on Alexandria Avenue, very passionate about it. So there's, people have, so all the ideas are wide-ranging, right, of what people think are really, and in their opinion, because that same person came to Joe, like, I think.
But be careful, don't be thin-skinned. I've been in your position, and I understand where you're coming from. And it's not easy where you are, Mark, and I know that, believe me, I know that better than anybody. So, it's not anything personal. It's just, people are looking at, for me, I'm looking out the police department, period, and I'm sure you are, as everyone else is. So I just like to attend the meetings, that's all. And did you think about this? Because I got thinking about this too, and I should bring this to the meeting rather than waste your time, but I had an oil spill up there back when I was supervisor, and it cost us an arm and a leg to remove that. Have you ever had any studies done of looking at that ground if you're gonna build on that piece of property? Because there's a lot of, there's got to be a huge amount of oil and salt and everything else on that ground.
Well, no matter, that's why we have professionals to look at that, our engineering firms.
So they have looked at the ground itself?
I didn't say that, they would as a consideration, and
But you spent $10,000, they didn't do that?
No,
No, they did not? I'm just saying, from my experience, it costs us thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars to remove some of that topsoil. And we had to bring it all the way up. It's like Rochester or somewhere was the only place you could deposit it.
The oil water separator, and so if all the oil was removed, it should be fine, right?
They had to go down a long ways. No, this was one spot area. This is one area, and it wasn't big. It was where an oil, the fuel tank leak.
So to answer your question, our engineering partners think it would be a viable site and that it would work, and as far as a footprint now, as far as the known infrastructure was there, if you found out there was revolutionary, it's been a town facility, it's in the boundaries of a town facility, and that's been the proposed site. Now, if something came up and it was a unknown historical site, then those are all challenges that you'd have to overcome.
I understand.
So,
I just,
make
it sure just let us know in your next meeting.
I will
as
gladly.
soon as I know, I'll send you a phone call.
Thank you.
I appreciate the input.
Just one question. When will those bollards be installed in the park? Haven't we had them for 2 years?
Yeah, we have. You notice I said it will be addressed.
Yeah, but I
We
want to
will
know.
address it. I'm not going to give you a time thing because I'm not going to schedule Grant's time. right
Okay,
now.
so how long does it take to remove a bollard?
I don't know.
It can't possibly be hours that would involve Parks and Rec's time.
I think the issue is they need a different vehicle to pick up the garbage in the first place.
That's a totally separate issue.
Well, it is an investment. It is an investment.
No, it isn't. Okay, I just think the town's expended money to buy these bollards, and now you have Parks and Recs not wanting to install them. They need to be
That's not
installed.
true. The Parks and Rec does not want to install them. That's
I
not true.
sat right here and listened to them.
You heard somebody speaking about that, but you didn't hear the rest of us say that.
I would just like to see them installed, because if they're not installed, it just continues to degrade those other two pathways. It would cost us more money in the long run to resurface it.
Is John Cook at a meeting? You spoke
No,
on behalf of him, but I don't remember
He
him
hasn't
coming
been
to
to Parks
any
and Rec
meeting.
meeting.
He told me he was out of town tonight, he was in.
No, not tonight,
Parks
but
and Rec.
she mentioned that he had come before, and I was trying to remember when he
He said it was after the 2019 event, but I don't know when that was. He didn't tell me.
Well, it's a good subject to review that, because those kind of things flow together, right? You got
Well,
those
we're talking about repaving the
and the
back.
pavement is
In fact, we're having
critical
trouble
of
getting
that.
a schedule because I have money for it.
The other question, that light pole that was put up right near the Heritage Museum, the excess one that you had put
Yeah,
up, it never lights up.
it doesn't work.
I've never seen it lit up.
Come on.
It did, because it took so long to put it up. I made sure I watched it, so if it's not working again, it was working.
It was
Because it took a long time
When's
to
the
get
last
that
time
put up.
you noticed?
Well, I don't come down here in the dark very often.
What, because the light bulb working or what?
It won't work when the clock works.
Oh, great.
That's another story.
I just didn't know if anyone's
It did
noticed
work
it's
when
not
they,
working.
it took a
Yeah.
long
At
time
least
to
it-
put it up, and it did work, and I don't know when it's.
I don't know if it's on a
That's what
timer and it goes off, and maybe got.
It's the
screwed up.
sensor.
Maybe the sensor
It's a
isn't working.
sensor. We'll have to look at
Yeah.
That's all I gotta know to make the meeting.
I agree with her, I'm not out there after dark very often either, so I don't know.
it. Not down this way anyway.
You just said that you had money to redo the pavement.
I have $21,000 to redo the pavement in the
Just-
park. We
just-
don't know how much that's going to do because we have to rebuild the foundation of the roadway. But what Joe is telling me is we really, and I didn't think about it because they've been down the park before, we really need to get IP's permission probably to do that. Because we're talking about reconstruction.
I already called him. He's supposed to get back to me.
No, not local IP, corporate IP.
No, I called O'Brien and he was gonna call, find out.
Well, yeah, but you
Oh,
have
okay.
contact already, we probably could get in touch with them regarding this.
What are you doing?
They want to, they get,
Remove the blacktop, and put a better surface underneath and then
And a section.
replace
A
the section.
section of it to try it out.
yeah,
Fix the wet spot.
Just my comment is, I know I've heard at the meetings that one of the problems is the trucks don't fit on the blacktop and it breaks the sides of the blacktop out. If you're gonna redo it, and if you're gonna have to pick up.
We looked at it, the issue is because we've got those light fixtures in there already, it limits how much we can, I think we could probably get another foot if we're lucky
But you can go the other way.
with, what do you mean?
You have the light fixtures here, you have the pavement here. What do you have on this side?
Drop off.
But I'm just saying, it's not
It's a drop.
insufficient that you couldn't widen it. What I'm just,
It's a drop, it's,
instead of paving it and breaking it again, my point is if you're gonna have them take trucks over there to pick up the stuff, you might just well make it at least sufficient that the trucks don't damage it after you fix it. But just a thought.
so build constructed properly,
Yeah.
build the right.
Or even if you make it a walking path and take and put stone or whatever next to it to support the trucks, just something so you're not destroying it after you fix it.
it's level and then it
There was
drops
an
off
alligator
on
that's,
the north side.
built for the roads down there. It was a small vehicle that could fit between.
That's great Parks and Rec information.
Yes, it is. Yes, it is, and my agenda is getting longer.
Good for the meeting.
It's not a very long section of paving.
Actually, you said that if they were able to do it
That's
this
just
year,
something to bring up to your Parks and Rec.
but we don't know how much the foundation is going to cost us.
I'm just throwing it out, why fix something if you're gonna break it again?
And, well, just because you brought it up, it'll be interesting in the future. I suspect that that discussion will continue to reside with Legacy International Paper, because they were the company that, and the mill up here will be a new company starting most of October 1st is probably the draft date. So those phone calls won't go up here any longer. It'll be an entirely different legal department if we are disturbing any of that legacy land. So we should find out before,
Who we have to contact?
yeah, like just I'm positive it'll be international paper, which won't be, this will be Silvano. So we just don't want to misstep in
Yeah.
doing something.
We've had them down in the park and they have done a walkthrough before when Chad was in this position. So, that we're even talking, replacing the blacktop is exciting to me, so I hope it happens.
Anything else?
Thanks, everybody.
Remember that?